This is Join Us in France, episode 178. Join Us in France is the podcast where we talk about France, its many quirks, its history, its language, and of course, destinations in France you want to learn about. And we go in depth so you have the tools you need to have a wonderful time in France. This episode is brought to you by Patreon supporters and Addicted to France, the tour company that specializes in small group and custom tours in France. And we've got a great tour coming up in May. Check it out on addictedtofrance.com. Bonjour from chilly Toulouse, everybody. I'm Annie, and on today's show, I chat with Elise about Christmas in France. This is the fourth Christmas episode we've released on this podcast. There was episode 45, Christmas markets in France, episode 95, Christmas in Paris, episode 132, at the Paris Christmas market. And if you're still looking for the perfect gift for the Francophile, and this is true year-round, check out our list, Best Gifts for Francophiles and Travelers, and you'll find that on joinusinfrance.com/gifts. I have to admit that I'm a hopeless Christmas enthusiast. We are enjoying Christmas at home this year, and I went all out, decorating the tree, listening to the music, the meal planning. I love the whole thing. Most French people don't get that much into it, except in some parts of France where they put me to shame, as we will discuss on today's episode. The French history brief after my conversation with Elise is going to be on the first Christmas tree ever recorded anywhere in the world. And guess what? It was in France. And for the email newsletter, I'll send you what I said I would send last week, but forgot to include. Sorry. It's called How French is Your Christmas? Many of you asked me to send it again, so you'll get it in your inbox on Saturday. And if you're not signed up for the weekly extras, I recommend you do. I only email once a week. Most of the time I do it right. And I try to put something really interesting and helpful to you in each one of those. And don't forget that after this episode, the show will go dark for 2 weeks, and I will be back on January 10th, 2018, full of wonderful New Year's resolutions, as I am sure you will as well. And now, here's the episode. Hello, Elise.
Hi, Annie.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Ça va?
Ça va, oui.
Okay, very good. Today we're talking about Christmas in France.
Christmas in France.
Exactly. And we're going to try to answer the question, what do we do at Christmas that we don't do the rest of the year?
Ah.
Yes.
That sounds, that could be interpreted in many different ways, but we'll see. We'll see where this is going to go.
But, okay, so the first thing we do, of course, is we visit Christmas markets.
We do.
We do. I mean, we don't have Christmas markets any other time of year.
By definition.
By definition. Now I'm going to teach you something,
Okay.
Elise.
Teach me.
Teach you. The oldest Christmas market in France is in Strasbourg.
Yes.
Okay. It has been happening since the Middle Ages. It's
That's
really
right.
old, but it used to be called the Saint-Nicolas market, le marché de la Saint-Nicolas, so Saint Nicholas market. The local merchants, they used to take over the plaza, in front of the cathedral.
In front of the cathedral.
And they would bring all sorts of things. They would bring pottery, clothes, whatever they were selling, they would bring there. I got a kick out of a story about a medicinal herb salesperson who would make his fortune every year at the Christmas market.
Probably giving out medicinal herbs for indigestion.
Yes, possibly.
After all the food.
It wasn't specifically gifts. You could get bread, you could get cheese, it was just a big market.
It's a big market.
Right. And in the Middle Ages, all of Strasbourg converted to being Protestants.
Yes.
Even the cathedral. I mean, everybody, yes, everybody converted. And a preacher in Strasbourg decided that this whole Saint Nicholas business was too Catholic. Because it's a saint, right?
It's a saint, that's right.
Saint Nicholas was a saint.
Who, of course, we've talked about him a couple of times, but he was the saint who was the patron saint of children.
Right.
And gave presents to children.
Exactly. So if Saint Nicholas wasn't bringing the gifts, then who would? Who will bring the gifts, right? So they decided that baby Jesus, well, not baby Jesus, but the young Jesus would bring the gifts. He was more of a 10-year-old version of Jesus. And you can see in some pictures of the time, a young, and it's not sure if this Jesus is a boy or a girl. So it's kind of mixed in with the St. Lucia traditions from further north, in Sweden.
Wow. Okay.
So in the pictures, it's kind of this very young teen, In Alsatian, they say, I'm going to try and speak Alsatian. Don't laugh. It's Christkindl for baby. Christkindl for baby Jesus. Right. So the Saint Nicholas market was renamed the Christkindl market in Alsatian.
Which is like in German, practically.
Right. Almost like a German thing. The tradition is that a young person dressed in white brings gifts. And actually, when people immigrated from Alsace to America, they brought this tradition to America. And if you're from Louisiana or Acadia in Canada, you might have heard of this tradition of Christkindl, because that's the time when a lot of them, left, and they exported that tradition with them.
The other thing is, what I do know also is that the northern traditions are really, even though they became Christian, go back to pagan times.
Oh, sure.
And so I believe that the whole thing with the log and with the mistletoe, that's like the Druids did things like that,
yes,
and so it's very interesting how they incorporated all of that into Christmas traditions.
And we still do. We incorporate traditions. In my own family, we incorporate traditions from different places.
Right.
Anyway, in Strasbourg, the Christmas market moved around from plaza to plaza so that every area, of the city would enjoy the economic benefit, obviously. But by now, it's so big.
It's very big.
That it takes over pretty much all the city plazas.
Yeah.
All the places are full of stuff. There's about a dozen places in the city center of Strasbourg.
The old city center is really quite big, actually.
Yeah. And so the city is illuminated every night. There's people selling candy, cookies, spice cake, mulled wine, fresh Christmas trees.
Decorations for the Christmas trees.
Decorations.
Big market.
Right.
I remember, about 20-something years ago, I was living up in the northeast of France and did go to the Strasbourg Christmas market. So it's a while ago, but I, at the time, had never seen a big Christmas market before. And it was like going to Disneyland for me. It was fabulous. It was just unbelievable. First of all, the weather is what I would call Christmas weather, which means coming from the northeast of the United States, it was cold.
Yeah.
And it's not Christmas if it's not really cold. It's just whatever.
Don't say that to the Australians.
Yeah. And it was fabulous. I love all that stuff. I love the spiced wine and the gingerbread men and all of that stuff. And it was beautiful. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And it's huge. And of course, it's become it's a big deal. I mean, it brings in revenue to Strasbourg. I don't know how many millions it brings in, but people reserve a year ahead to have a hotel room just to go there for a couple of days.
Yes, I think so. And all through the area, the Alsace and Lorraine area, they have beautiful Christmas markets. And as a matter of fact, I want to go through a list of the 10 best Christmas markets in France, according to a magazine. It's Paris Match.
Okay.
So it's a French magazine.
Is that the most recent list? Because apparently, I don't know how they change it from year to year.
Yeah,
How
of
do
course they change it.
I
don't know. No. I don't know how they decide.
It's weird, you know.
If you Google it, you will see all sorts of lists.
Right.
But in that magazine, they said Colmar was first.
Colmar, yes. We should mention that. Colmar is the big rival of Strasbourg, but it's a much, much, much smaller city.
Uh-huh.
So Strasbourg is the northern end of Alsace.
Yeah.
And Colmar is basically the southern end.
Uh-huh.
And Colmar is very beautiful. It's almost entirely the city center is beautiful medieval, but it's much, much, much smaller than Strasbourg. But for some reason, they have picked up and rivaled Strasbourg in terms of the decoration and in the markets that they have. But it's interesting to me because I was in both of those places, not at Christmas time, just 2 years ago. And Colmar is teeny compared to Strasbourg. So it's interesting that suddenly Colmar has beat out Strasbourg.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back and see what they do.
Right. Yeah, I haven't been to. I've been to those areas, but not at Christmas.
Oh yeah, and I know that they do illuminations on the buildings in Colmar, but I'd really like to be able to see both of them to get an idea of how one competes against the other.
Well, listeners, if you've been to both, let us know because we'd like to know. So Colmar is number 1 in that list. Strasbourg is number 2 on that list. Montbéliard is number 3.
And where is Montbéliard? In the Jura.
Ah, c'est dans le Jura.
Yeah, and I went and looked it up on the map yesterday.
Good for you. I would have been stuck there. I'm like, I don't know.
Like, okay, it's like I did my Google thing and I just kept going, okay, make it smaller and smaller so I can see where this thing is. It's in the Jura. It's about, I don't even know in time, but let's say it's about, I think 45 kilometers from Besançon.
Okay.
Northeast of Besançon. I've never been there.
Me neither.
But it's on everybody's top 5 list for Christmas markets.
Well, there you go. Got to go to Montbéliard one of these days. Number 4 is Aubernais.
And Aubernais is where?
I don't know.
Oh, I have no idea where it is either.
Let's look.
Let's go take a look.
Let's look. Aubernais is probably very small.
Aubernais, I bet, is in Alsace.
Oh, yeah.
Is in Alsace.
Aubernais is just a little bit south of Strasbourg.
There you are.
Not very far from Strasbourg.
Okay.
So definitely in Alsace.
So we're still up in the northeast because
We're still in that
Montbéliard is
area.
definitely northeast, even though it's a little bit further south.
They beat us out.
Jura, yeah.
Then number 5 was Mulhouse.
And Mulhouse. Mulhouse is a city I have never, ever been to.
Me neither. So Mulhouse is just a little south of Colmar.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if technically
it's still Alsace or not.
Still Alsace or not.
Don't know.
But it's like probably an hour south of
Strasbourg.
Yeah. More than an hour south of Colmar.
Yeah, Colmar's about an hour south of Strasbourg.
So,
But it is interesting to know that most of those markets are in the same part of France, which is the northeast.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is Germanic in a sense.
Yeah. Then number 6 is Reims.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And
France
I had looked up and I'd seen Metz as number 6. But Reims is interesting.
Yeah. Number 7 is Amiens.
Amiens
in the north of France.
But northwest of Paris.
Maybe.
Yeah. I've been there.
C'est le Nord.
The Nord, really, now that they call it the Nord. Amiens, that's interesting because Amiens...
No, they don't call it the Nord anymore. They call it les Hauts-de-France.
Oh, that's right, the Hauts-de-France.
Les Hauts-de-France.
It's horrible. Stupid name. I've been to Amiens to see the cathedral, actually. Which is gorgeous. I can imagine the little city center doing very nice market and illumination. It's about the same size in my mind as Colmar, which means it's small.
Yeah.
It's not a very big city center. It's interesting that they do such a nice market.
But they do very well. And then we come to number 8 first is Lille.
Is Lille?
Lille.
Oh,
which is close to Amiens, also in the Hauts-de-France.
But you know what? I was at Lille for Christmas... I don't know, let's say 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's a very interesting little city. I thought it was very nice. We had wonderful food and drink and everything. But I don't have any memory of being impressed by their decorations or Christmas market.
Well, it might have changed in the
might have
meantime.
changed.
You know, it's that because they made the list, so they're not too bad.
And where's Metz? Because I have Metz on my top 10 list. You don't have
Well,
Metz?
Yes, Metz is number 9. It's next.
Metz is number 9.
Yes.
Now, this is, again, going back to when I was living up in the Northeast, and it was the same year that I actually visited the Christmas market in Strasbourg. I visited Metz many times, but not at Christmas time. But it's a city that very few people know about, unless you come from that part of France.
Right.
People go, where? Well, whatever, you know. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It has a beautiful cathedral. It's one that is absolutely gorgeous and nobody talks about. And so it's interesting to me that they have... they're on the top 10 list for Christmas markets. It actually makes me want to go back and check it out.
Yeah. And then number 10 is Arras.
Is Arras.
Also in the Hauts-de-France.
Yeah, that's close to Amiens.
Yes, and you will notice that nothing in the South in these lists, which kind of makes sense to me because in the South, we don't have as long a tradition of Christmas markets as they do in the North. Now, Toulouse has a Christmas market.
Yes.
It has had, that probably started, 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
I would say, let's see, my guess is I would say yes. I would say about 10 years ago. It's certainly 10, 11 years ago would be the first time. And it is true that the cities in the South basically picked up the idea from the cities in the North because, number one, it's good for business, and also it's good for tourism. Even though you're absolutely right, the tradition in the South is not necessarily of Christmas markets.
But we do go. I mean, I do every year. I go to the Christmas market in Toulouse at least once.
Right.
You know, I don't go more often than that because it's always the same pretty much, which is a problem. I think they should get more adventurous, more, invite more creative people to.
Part of the problem is, and of course I can talk a lot about the one in Toulouse because in spite of the fact that I don't think it's that great a market, I do go all the time. I happen to love it. I'm a sucker. I mean, just forget it.
Yeah, she's a sucker.
I know which merchants I want to go find because they're people that I don't see anywhere else all year anyway. But part of the thing is, and this is true in Bordeaux too, and it's true probably in other cities in the South, is that the copy quality of it is silly. They copy the Northern chalet.
Yeah.
It's like they don't even try a style that's a Southern style. It's like, we're going to do a Christmas market that looks like you come from a northern cold country where there's snow.
They make it look like fake. There's fake snow and things. It's
And so it becomes this kind of, oh, really? Why can't we just try something that makes it a little bit more, oh, right, we have a Christmas market, but we're in the south of France. But they don't, So it has this
I think it'll take a few years before we integrate and kind of make it our own.
Maybe.
Because it takes a long time to do that.
Yeah, but then something happened this past week, talking about specifically Toulouse, because this is where we are. The Toulouse market is very big. It has 130 vendors. It happens that one of the things I don't like about the market is that 25 to 30% is just food. I mean, it's like sandwich snacks, but it's not even northern food. Like, I think there's one that sells gingerbread and stuff like that, which is, for me, connected to the whole northern Germanic kind of thing. But they do sell, of course, spiced wine, and then they sell, of course, the local aligot and cheese and things like that.
Yeah.
But by accident, last week, I discovered that on another big avenue in Toulouse, there is an alternative Christmas market that is truly craftspeople.
Oh.
And that is on the Allée Jules Guesde.
Ah, okay.
Which is, for those people who have any idea about the city center of Toulouse, of course, it's just like it's a 10-minute walk away, but it's the other side of the old city center.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I find that upsets me about that is that you don't see any advertisement for that particular market.
Right. It's not as...
And so it surprised me because I spoke to a friend of mine who lives right there, and that's happened to be how I found it. And she said, oh, it's the third year that it's there. It's really craftspeople, and there's a little bit of food as well. And I said, well, why isn't there?
And they don't do the chalets with the fake snow and all that.
They do stands, more like the kind that you would see in other places. So it doesn't have that chalet nonsense look, but there are lights and everything. And I saw some really nice stuff there. And I thought, that's not fair. In other words, the big Christmas market is, some of the vendors are people I really like. I know why I go there, but very few of them are actually craftspeople.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of cities are going or need to be going. And speaking of that, we need to mention the Paris Christmas market on the Champs-Élysées, which is not there this year in 2017. And I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future, but it's a whole political thing because there was this fair promoter in Paris called Marcel Campion who got in trouble with the city council. Mm-hmm. They voted unanimously to cancel his market. I don't know what he did to them, but they don't like him.
Right.
And he has been doing business for decades in Paris. He's put up all sorts of La Foire du Trône, that was him, the big Ferris wheel, Place de la Concorde, that was him. That's also going. So anything that has to do with Marcel Campion is coming down in Paris. Mm. And what the city is saying is that in the future, they will do a Christmas market on the Champs-Élysées, but with a very different atmosphere. And if you listen to the episode I did last year about walking the Paris Christmas market, let me find the episode number.
Which is basically between Place de la Concorde and the beginning of where the shops are.
Exactly.
Where the nice trees are in parks.
So that one was episode 135. And I walked through and I commented, and I was trying to keep it positive, but a lot of it was really, really commercial and crass and overpriced for things that were clearly not French made or,
right.
So I understand what the city is doing, and they really want to move in a direction of more, it's the difference between buying stuff on Amazon and buying stuff on Etsy. If you buy on Etsy, you're buying something that somebody made. A one-of-a-kind item from a craftsperson, which is lovely. If you can afford it, it's lovely. Right. And so they want to go more in that direction.
Which is nice. Which is
good. And I think more French cities need to go in that direction because it's more creative.
It's more creative. And to come back just for a second to what I said about the Toulouse market, which is really not all negative, because as I'm listening to you, I realized one of the things that is true is that it is all French made. Everything that is sold on the market is not from other countries. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're the people who actually produce it. Some of the people do and some of the people don't. But none of it comes from elsewhere outside of France. So, there's somebody who sells a lot of soaps and creams that come from the region. Somebody else who sells Armagnacs and things like that. And I know someone who actually sells clothing and scarves that are made with the pastel blue dye. So it's
whereas in previous years, I remember seeing this whole display that was tiny little plastic cars from China. And if you have a vendor that's all plastic cars from China, and another one that's all these like little stupid toys that get really what do they call this, spinner
tops? Those spinner things
that they came and went, but some of these Christmas markets, that's a lot of what you see are
kind of like a regular junk market.
Right. Flash in the pan, popular right now, everybody wants this item. And then next week it's in the trash.
It's gone,
So I would prefer not to have so much of that. And I haven't been this year, so I don't know in Toulouse, but it would be good if they had less of that.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
And in Paris too, they need less of that. They need more nicer stuff. Of course, it makes it more expensive too. So,
yeah, but then you can get little things. I've always found, I've never had a big budget, but I like getting little crafts, soaps, or little things that are even just it's like it's the idea of giving something that counts. A little pot of honey from a local producer, things like that you can give as a little gift. Don't cost a lot, but at least it's really something that was produced from not far away. It certainly didn't come from China.
In general, the countries that went more Protestant have more of these traditions of Christmas markets.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's linked somehow to the religious traditions of Christmas. If you think about it, in the South, in very heavily Catholic France, in the south of France, etc., we didn't really adopt the live Christmas tree until recently. I mean, when I first moved back to Toulouse, 13 years ago?
Yeah.
I had lived in the US for 18 years, and I had gotten used to a beautiful, fresh Christmas tree in my house.
Right.
I went looking for one.
You couldn't find one?
You couldn't find one. They all had these Charlie Brown little silly Christmas trees.
Oh.
And nobody could sell me a Christmas tree. No, a wreath. That's a different question. A pot, a Christmas tree stand where I could put water in it.
Right.
I had a beautiful one in America that I decided not to put it in the container when we moved back.
Uh-huh.
That was a stupid idea.
It was a mistake.
Because when I got here, nobody could sell me one of those. And to this day, you cannot find a Christmas tree stand with a water tank in it.
And it's interesting you say that, because this conversation I had with some people just last week, one of the women is German, who lives here in France, and she was complaining because she was saying that one of the traditions in France is to buy the tree very early now. Mm-hmm. And not have pots to water them.
Yeah, they're
and she
dead.
said by the time you get to Christmas Day, the needles are all falling off the tree.
Yeah, they're all dead.
So that's interesting.
So a few years back, when I was in the US, I'm ashamed to admit this, but a friend of mine over there, I asked for a recommendation on a good Christmas Christmas tree stand with a big water tank, and she told me the best one she ever had was from Walmart.
Uh-huh.
So I got myself to Walmart and I bought one and I put it in my suitcase, and it took up half of the suitcase, but I didn't care. And so I have my Walmart Christmas stand.
And I see the tree is beautiful.
And you can see the tree, and I keep putting water in there, and this is a precious item, let me tell you. So if any of you want to make a fortune, ship a ton of Christmas tree stands with water tanks to France, because we need them.
But talking about that, I know you wanted to talk about the differences, what makes it different in France. The tradition of trees, it's so interesting that you're saying that. I've always used to just buy a teeny little thing to put on a table. I didn't buy a big tree. We didn't have a lot of kids around and stuff like that. Now that people in France buy trees, they buy them very early.
Yeah.
And they set them up right away. And so that it's obviously a problem, because they don't wait. Like, there's a different tradition in the States, or in fact in northern countries, where very often they buy the tree only a few days before Christmas, and they decorate it. Everybody decorates it together very often the Christmas Eve. And here, a lot of the people like you, I know, the tree is up, the tree is decorated, the presents are, in fact, you're impressing me this year. The presents are almost all of them under the tree already.
Yeah, we have a lot of presents
I think that's very sadistic, personally, but there you are. Look at these presents for 2 weeks. You can't touch them. But you're right.
We don't have any little children.
No.
So
the tree thing is northern, because it's connected to the St. Nicholas tradition and the pine trees and the needles and things like that.
But it's coming.
Whereas the south is about Sainton and crèche, right?
Right. So the Sainton. So most people put up a tree by now, a Christmas tree, even if it's a fake one,
right,
or even if it's a live one that's going to die prematurely because it doesn't have any water.
Oh my God, this sounds like such a tragedy.
Yes, it is terrible. Most people do have a tree, okay? What most people don't do so much is a crèche.
Yeah.
So that's crèche is a nativity.
But it's very Catholic.
It's very Catholic, and some people do it, but I would say not the majority of people in France. And the other thing you don't see in France is you don't see a lot of nativity displays in public.
Right.
So what you have to understand is that France is a very secular country today.
Yes.
And the change happened very quickly at the French Revolution. Before the French Revolution, people used to have live nativity scenes in front of churches, on public squares, inside of the church. I mean, nativity scenes and passion plays and things like that were everywhere.
Like they still are in Spain.
Yes, Spain does that a lot more.
Yes.
But in France, that all had to stop, and the Catholic Church was persecuted. So were the Protestants. So were
Religion was basically banished for a certain number of years.
Right. And then it got codified in 1905 and has survived somewhat. But France is a very secular country, like I said, and so we don't get nativity scenes in public.
No, not. They're considered to be part of religion, which needs to be in a religious place, not in a public governmental
right.
place.
So it's either in your house or
in the church.
In the church, nowhere else.
Did you have a creche growing up?
I did.
Okay.
My parents put up a very sorry-looking Christmas tree, and underneath the Christmas, and it was perched up, and underneath was a crèche, and my brother still has it, and he still puts it up.
Yeah.
Yes. And c'est des santons. They're little clay people. They're not actual santons. They're a cheaper version of that, and they are very sorry-looking. But it's the one we grew up with, so my brother puts it up every year.
He keeps it. Right.
Yes. But so if people have a crèche, it's going to be inside of their house, not outside.
Absolutely.
Is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, outside on the public squares, you have lights and then
Lots of
Christmas
lights.
trees.
Right. Lots of lights, lots of Christmas trees.
Lots of Christmas trees. Now.
And French people do not decorate their houses so much. We don't put up lights as much. We have in my village, I think we have one family that puts out a lot of lights in their house. I haven't driven by at night. I don't remember seeing it this year. Anyway, maybe they moved or something. But we have a few oddballs that will go all out and do a big Christmas lights display outside of their house. But you might have
not
one,
part of the tradition.
No, you might have one per village. Other people might put up one tiny little strand.
Yeah.
Sorry
or they
looking
take
one
a bush
strand.
outside and put some lights on it. Or they put a wreath. I mean, you do see people putting wreaths on.
Yeah.
But it's not part of the tradition. And of course, in the States, it becomes a competition too.
Yes.
It's like, I remember driving through neighborhoods and it was like, wow, it's like one house outdoes the other. It gets to be a little bit crazy after a while.
Yes.
Reindeer on the roof and all the rest of that, But,
we rarely see that. You will see it once in a great while, but it's very unusual. Cities do put up lights.
Cities put up
most of
lights.
them. But they have a very different view on this. I mean, they're trying to attract shoppers to come to the city center to do Christmas shopping. And France, just like many other countries, we do more and more shopping online. I know I do. And so I don't have to go into the city to shop. I would gladly go if there was something for me to do. But just to go into the city to shop, I'm like...
Well, that's you. You do that.
That's just me.
That's you. Because
You're very different.
I go into the city all the time.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, though, about the lights. For instance... even if there's no market in Paris is beautiful with the lights at Christmas time.
Yes.
The city hall and the square, which becomes an ice skating rink in front of it, is magnificent. It's all lighted up, but it's not even vulgar. It's just this gorgeous display of beautiful tiny lights.
It's beautiful.
It's like crystal.
And they're also, we should have mentioned this earlier. Sorry, we're jumping around a little bit, but there's also beautiful Christmas markets in Paris, just not the one on the Champs-Élysées.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
No. And I think the whole thing of the lights is, I guess my personal preference is, I like the fact that it's the cities and the old city centers that are lighted up, not people's houses. And, I just think it's classier. It's just really beautiful.
Yeah.
The beautiful, the big trees, the lights strewn all over the place with the, tops of the buildings.
Well, some cities light up very nicely in America.
Yeah.
Salt Lake City has a beautiful... but it's Temple Square.
It's Rockefeller Center in New York is really beautiful. I mean, there are but it's pockets like that because you can't really do huge cities.
And then you have Christmas towns or Christmas village or Christmas cities in America. Yeah, there's places where...
Just that.
Yeah, it's the theme. So you move there if you're a Christmas that case, and you just want to do Christmas big every year.
Well, maybe we can, talking about lights, we can segue into just this little thing about Lyon and the Festival of Lights.
This is big.
Which is pre-Christmas. It actually goes on from the 8th to the 11th, always beginning on the 8th of December every single year.
Yeah.
It's called the Festival of Lights. It's we've both been to Lyon, but you actually were there more recently. Last year, I think you were there, right? More recently than I was. I've never been there at this time of the year. It is really fabulous. There are over 2 million people who come to Lyon for this festival. But what's interesting, I was doing a little research on it because I had suggested talking about it as a kind of pre-Christmas thing because it kind of announces winter time and the whole idea of lights and Christmas and everything else. And it turns out that it started in 1852.
Oh, that's old.
Yeah, it's really old. Lyon is a city that has a part that's down below by the rivers and then has a couple of big hills.
Yeah.
One of them is called Fourvière.
No.
Fourvière. And so it turns out that starting in the Middle Ages, there was a tradition of having one particular statue that was up on top of the hill. Probably, it doesn't say, but my guess is it was a statue of the Madonna, but I'm not even sure. That was lighted with candles all the way around. We go through the Revolution, whatever, and we come back out into the middle of the 19th century when people are starting to really be more religious again. And they commissioned some local artists to do a new statue that they wanted to put up on the top of this hill because it is a place where if you're even down below, you can really see it if it's lighted up.
Yeah.
And originally it was supposed to be installed on the 8th of September. Why the 8th? I'm not sure.
Why not?
Maybe connected to the saint or whatever, but it doesn't even mention the name of the saint. Anyway, what happened was there was flooding in the Saône and in the Rhône. The lower city was completely flooded. And then there was a period of very, very bad weather with lots of cloud, lots of rain. And so the installation and the idea of putting candles got put off for 2 months. And suddenly it became the 8th of December. And so in 1852, on the 8th of December, they made an announcement. However, they do the announcements in those days. The city crier, right, running around, maybe on horseback, I don't even know, that the statue was going to be put up, and they asked everybody to light a candle. And so everybody put candles in their windows, and it became, from that moment on, a tradition that every single year on the 8th of December, everybody in Lyon would light up candles in their windows. It must have been beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And candles all around the statue. Well, we come to, obviously, electricity. And some people still put candles in their windows. Apparently, this is still really what people do, especially in the city center of Lyon. And then, obviously, as a way of attracting more people and bringing a certain value to the old buildings in the city center of Lyon in 1989, so not that long ago, they made it into an official festival. And they hired artists to do all kinds of illuminations all over the city. And it, of course, brings in people. It's became more and more famous. And so there were people that were being brought in. So just a couple of the statistics, because since 1999, it is 4 days, not just one. For all those other years, it was just the 8th of December.
Okay.
They've made it now into this thing called the Festival of Lights.
Yep.
Last
Festival
year,
des Lumières.
There were 1,300,000 visitors for it. They have 41 light artists who are invited to come and do things. So what they do is they project images on the buildings.
Right, video.
Some of it is video. Some of it is kind of like the light and sound shows that they do in the summer for chateaus to show the history of the buildings.
Yep.
Color everywhere, absolutely color everywhere. And they have, now as a guide, this impresses me, the 4 days, there are over 286 guided visits. That's a lot of work for 4 days.
Yeah.
to see the different parts of the city lighted up, and apparently it's absolutely fabulous. I've only seen parts of it on television, but what happens is, as soon as it's over, then they begin the decoration in the Christmas market.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting that it wasn't intended to be.
It ushers in the Christmas,
but it ushers
season.
in the Christmas market, the Christmas spirit. And Lyon is kind of, what would you say? It's kind of, I know it's considered southern, but the weather is colder there.
Yeah, you're closer to the Alps, and you have the Rhône, which brings in a lot of humidity as well. So I would.
So it feels more wintry there.
Yeah, it's colder than Toulouse.
It's colder than Toulouse. Yeah. So it's a big deal. I would actually like to see it. My husband would not. He thinks big light shows and crowds are not such a great thing. But hey, I think it would be really beautiful to see.
Yeah, I would enjoy that very much. So the other thing that is big in we're going to get to the food. We got to get to the food because we've been talking a long time. But another thing that is not so big in France, that is huge in America and in England, is the Christmas caroling.
Yes.
In France, so in the Southwest, we have these old Occitan songs like Nadal Tindere, like there's a bunch of them.
Do you know them?
Yeah. But that's an Occitan kind of tradition. In Provençal, they also have their own Christmas songs. But I think we don't do, like I sing them when we get together with my brother, like we always do. But there's some choirs that will do performances that use those
Christmas
songs.
Concerts.
But we don't have near as many Christmas concerts as you do in America or in England.
But the concerts here tend to be requiems,
yes.
Really, that kind of music. There's no Christmas caroling here.
No, and the symphony is not doing the Messiah.
Right.
The ballet is not doing the Nutcracker.
Yes, they are.
Are they?
Oh, they always do.
This year?
Oh, always. That's
I don't
one
follow
thing.
the ballet. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
The ballet, they do.
They do the Nutcracker.
It's really, I don't like. I mean, I think
Christmas
it's boring.
time?
Yeah. They do it every single year.
Yeah. So these are traditions that we don't really do as much. It's coming slowly. I think in another 10, 20 years, maybe we'll do more of that.
I don't know. It's not a tradition here. I mean, it's a northern tradition. It's a very English tradition.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I guess it is German too. They do a lot of caroling.
Oh, yeah.
They sing a lot.
They have amazing carols in German.
I haven't really done any research, but my guess is that it's part of a very old tradition, the idea of going from house to house under the windows and singing to people. That's definitely not what people do here.
Yeah, and Occitan people do it a little more than others, but it's not as big as it needs to be.
I'm just sort of curious, when you sing the songs in Occitan, you know what you're singing?
Kinda. I mean, Occitan is a funny language because I realized I was watching a YouTube video recently of a group that they want to promote Occitan locally here. And so they put up this video, and it was kind of in the background, and I realized after a bit that I understood everything.
It's like Spanish.
Right, but I don't really speak it.
Right.
If you ask me to say anything, I'm like, deer in the headlights, like, I don't know. But if you speak it to me, I get most things, Okay. So it's kind of in the background. So these songs, well, Nadal Tindere is a really fast song. So that one I have to have the words in front of me because I can't. My tongue doesn't go that fast. But I can say it perfectly. I mean, I can sing it. It's not difficult. But understanding all the details, probably not. But the gist of it, yes. Yeah. So let's get to the food. Finally, we're to food. So the traditional French foods in France are foie gras,
which, whatever, you either accept and eat or you don't.
Yes.
But it is really traditional.
Yes, we eat quite a bit of it. Oysters are also a big thing. Also,
and smoked salmon.
And caviar,
caviar.
If that's your thing. Let's see, what else?
Usually, interestingly, turkey.
Yes.
Here, we've talked about this before. When you want to do a Thanksgiving and have a whole turkey at the end of November, it's hard to find one. But you wait until the week before Christmas, and then you can find all the whole turkeys you want.
Right. All the nice round whole turkeys.
Right. It tends to be turkey or capon.
Capon.
Chapon. Yeah.
Du chapon. Capon, pas capon. Chapon.
In English, capon.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's the English that confuses me.
In other words, a bird, very often.
It's...
usually that, or if you have only...
de l'oie rôti.
Yeah.
Roasted
I've only had that once in my life. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal because it makes a huge mess in your oven. I made it once. It is so fatty. It splatters everywhere. Oh.
And it's good when you have a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it is true that very often, I mean, sometimes other people will choose a roast, a leg of lamb, for instance, or something like that.
I've never had that.
I've done that rather than, because I kind of get tired of, since I usually do a turkey or you have turkey with you at Thanksgiving, it's kind of like, oh, this is nice. I mean, I know it's more associated with springtime, but a lot of people do some kind of bird. In fact, you know, that's what they do as the main dish.
Right. We don't do ham at Christmas.
No.
That's a different...
and whole ham here is very unusual.
No, you don't find whole ham.
No.
We don't cook whole ham very much. Let's see. I've had prime rib is also very unusual in France.
Yes, it is unusual.
So
it is.
You could
it's very
have
expensive.
But it's very unusual.
Lots of champagne.
Yes, lots of champagne.
Lots
of good wines for Christmas. People bring out their good bottles of wine.
Exactly.
You know, they're good champagne. I'm going to get yelled at because my sister-in-law told me to bring 2 bottles of champagne, and I warned her I'm bringing demi-sec. So not the dry stuff.
I know. I'm yelling at you for her.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everybody else is bringing the brut,
right,
which is the dry stuff, and I'm bringing a couple of bottles.
Yeah, everybody out there, she likes to drink sweet.
It's not that sweet.
It's just a little bit sweeter. Well, it's like the wines. You like them a little sweeter.
Yeah, I like
them
a little sweeter. Yeah,
but it's true. Lots of bubbly.
Yeah, lots of bubbly,
good wines.
So the other big difference is that the Christmas meal is going to go on for freaking ever. For freaking ever.
Right.
So what we're doing at my brother's house celebration this year is we're doing aperitif around the fireplace. Mm-hmm. And that will include shrimp and little toast with foie gras and, some nice smoked salmon, things like that. That will probably go on for a couple of hours. And then we'll sing and we'll do things. And then once that's done, we'll go to the table and have our Christmas réveillon.
And you're going to have sung a lot to work up an appetite after all those appetizers.
Exactly. So, and then we'll have... It's my sister-in-law decision. She is making magret de canard. So duck breasts. With probably potatoes, and there's probably going to be a really nice cheese platter and lots of different wines.
And then, of course, the desserts.
And then the desserts, which are going to be Christmas log.
Christmas log, which is such a tradition here. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's either Christmas log, which is really made at a patisserie. With real buttercream and things like that. Or what I actually like, because that's my preference.
Frozen stuff.
I
love the frozen stuff too.
I love it.
Yeah, the only Christmas logs I really enjoy, the pastry ones, are the ones with chestnut. Au marron.
That's interesting.
I really love those. The chocolate, I find it's too much.
The coffee you don't like either?
The coffee I don't like so much.
I like the coffee, but it's
vanilla
rich,
I don't like so much. I bought a few the other day for Sunday.
Yeah.
For Sunday, because now you can buy them at the store this time of year. And I couldn't even finish mine. It was like an individual portion chocolate, but it's just too rich and chocolatey.
Rich.
And
basically, it's the same concept as a jelly roll, but with enormous amounts of buttercream. Decorated like a Christmas log, basically. Mm-hmm. And it can be delicious. The truth is, I find that if you don't want to spend a fortune and get one from a really high-end pastry maker, you might as well do frozen, because the ones that are commercial tend to be really heavy. And they don't, there's something, you can eat them, but they don't have that extra little something or other and so the frozen ones are just, that's what I love.
Yeah, they're just perfect for the end of because the ice cream, it melts and goes in the cracks in your belly.
Oh, is that what happens? Is that why I like it?
That's why it doesn't take up any more space. It just melts on the way down, and then it can just go in the cracks.
Oh God, I love that explanation. You and I both like the nougat. The frozen nougat. That's one of my favorite with the red fruit. That's my favorite.
Right. So nougat is the tradition in Provence, more, and they do the 12 desserts in Provence for Christmas,
which means what? Nuts and fruits.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Dried fruits.
Yeah.
Very simple things.
Yeah, I'll send out. I made a description of all of that with photos and all that. So I'll send that out to email subscribers.
Which reminds me that there's also a difference in the tradition in Provence, which is, of course, the southeast of France, which goes back to the old Catholic traditions. And that is, I know people who on the night of the 24th on Christmas Eve have fish.
Yeah, I've heard of that, but I don't know anybody who does that.
Yeah, I do. I know a couple of people who do that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because
we kind of do fish because we have the smoked salmon and the caviar and stuff like that.
But that's that's like a first course for the main dish on Christmas Day.
As a main dish for fish, I've never had that.
Yeah, but I do know some people, I have some friends who do that on Christmas Eve. They actually have fish. And I guess that's a leftover from the days when you just had fish.
Yeah.
In Italy, they do that.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing that's really different about Christmas in France is, and it's going to sound counterintuitive to what we said before, is that a lot of people go to Christmas Mass, to midnight Mass.
Yeah, they do.
The cathedrals fill up, which cathedrals are often kind of empty the rest of the year.
And the cathedrals are big, so filling them up is something.
Yeah. But for Christmas Eve, a lot of people do that. When I lived in the center of Toulouse, we used to go, but we don't anymore because it's a drive. And the thing is, most small village churches don't do a Christmas Mass. It's mostly the big cathedrals that will put on something, and they'll have a choir, and they'll have something really nice. But most churches are going to be closed on Christmas.
The small ones are closed.
Yeah, the small ones are closed. So for the people who want to attend Christmas Mass, they need to be a little bit strategic about this and decide and get there early because they fill up. What do you have to say, Kat?
What? Okay.
So, but yes, Christmas Mass.
People do go to church in the States for Christmas.
Yeah, some traditions do that. Yes, not everybody.
Well, I guess I know that growing up in New York and having lived in neighborhoods with a lot of people who are Italian American, they definitely did. Go to midnight Mass.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends on what your particular origins are.
Right. Depends on what church origin.
But it is nice, and it is a tradition where you see people going out that late at night, and, walking around, and it adds to the atmosphere of everything.
It's really for city dwellers, I think. Yeah. If you live, which in France, city dwellers, that tends to be the most expensive housing. Is right in the city.
In the old prestigious part. Yeah.
Right, old prestigious parts of the city. So these people tend to be more traditional, and they do get dressed up and go to midnight Mass because they usually live within walking distance of the cathedral. Where I'm in the suburbs, and so I grew up in the center of Toulouse, and so yes, we used to do that, but not so much now. So, for sure, if you attend a Christmas celebration in France, what I can guarantee is that you will eat too much.
Drink
too much. And you know what's strange is that French people who are very, very careful about what they eat most of the year, at Christmas time, they just let loose and do whatever they want.
Well, we didn't talk about chocolate.
How could we talk about chocolate?
We didn't talk about chocolate. I mean, talking about letting loose, I mean, it is the time of the year when people consume so much chocolate.
Yes, people have chocolate out where they don't the rest of the year.
Chocolate. I mean, people buy. I've already bought some. I mean, it's like people buy enormous amounts of chocolate. They give chocolate as a present. They have chocolate out for people to come over to the house.
Right. And like you will serve him a coffee and give him a couple of pieces of chocolate.
And it's wonderful. Yeah. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, or candied chestnuts, which is what I have opened today.
Les marrons glacés.
Les marrons glacés, which I love.
You love? Ah.
Les marrons is more of a southwest tradition.
Yeah.
In the southeast is more nougat.
Yes. And macaroon?
Yeah. Macaron could be anywhere.
Everywhere, pretty much.
Yeah, it could be anywhere. But the southwest, we have a lot of chestnuts and duck and more.
And the
things
marron
like that.
glacé, it's true. My husband loves them. I find them too sweet.
Oh.
Yeah, you love that. You love it. But you like nougat too.
I like nougat too.
She's a good sweetie.
I like sweet
She's
stuff.
like sweets.
I'm terrible. I like most things.
I like chocolate.
So that's for sure. You will eat too much. You will drink too much. We are not super particular in France as to when we celebrate Christmas, which is another big difference. French people are more, shall we say, flexible?
Yeah, there's a certain flexibility here that if you have family from far away and they can't make it absolutely for the day of
the 25th or the 24th, then they just say, well, we'll just do it on the 26th or we'll do it on the 23rd and the celebrations can stretch out over the whole week because with one part of the family, like your husband's side of the family, you're going to be doing it on the 27th. And with your own side of the family, maybe it'll be on the 24th. And then you on the 25th, you're at your own house.
Right.
Something like that. And people don't get all worked up about that.
No, and there's a circulation even with friends coming over and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit different. And you know what that reminds me of? It was something I forgot to mention when we were talking about all the Christmas markets. I was noticing, because it is something that has always annoyed me about the one in Toulouse. In the north of France, just like in the rest of almost all the rest of Europe, the markets begin in November, more or less somewhere between the 20th and 24th of November, and they continue until New Year's Day.
Okay.
Which is nice because that gives you a week after Christmas if you need to exchange things, or if you have people that you haven't seen yet and you forgot to buy a present at the last minute. In Toulouse, the market ends the day of Christmas.
Well, because they want to be done with it.
And it starts later. It starts actually at the end of the first week in December. So it's very short. It's only 3 weeks rather than 6. And I checked the dates on almost everywhere else, and only Bordeaux and Toulouse have such a short market. So I don't know if it's connected to the fact that it's the South, but I think
it's just cultural.
You think it's just cultural?
Yeah, I think we're not as into it.
I think it's just a shame, though, that because just like when you buy presents, you know, there's the whole thing about the day after or 2 days after, you can do these exchanges of presents and things like that for Christmas. I thought it should do the same thing with the Christmas markets. I mean,
but they don't want to be working in the cold. They want to be home.
But they're there all day on Christmas Day.
Which is bizarre.
And then that's it.
That is so bizarre. You could not pay me to be anywhere on Christmas Day, but with my family. I'm sorry.
So that's why it makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah,
you know, because there is a certain flexibility about, well, when are you going to see everybody? You know, so it's like,
and that's a very big difference because I remember tensions, let's put it this way, that were possible with, who's going to Christmas where, whatever. People feeling bad that didn't work out to have. In France, I don't get the impression that people get all worked up about it. They just, they're like, okay, well, we'll do it on the 28th. Everybody's free on 28th. Let's do that. And I think that's nice. And it also gives you more opportunities for celebrations.
I guess it does. I mean, it's just strangely enough, in a country that's not that big where people can travel, there is that. It's a little bit more flexible than the whole thing of in the States. It has to be on the 24th and 25th.
Right.
That's just it.
So this episode is going to be released on December 20th.
Oh, which is appropriate.
And then I'm taking a couple of weeks off. So after that, there won't be another show until January 10th. Just want to make sure. In the new year. And there will be a few changes, of course, because it's the new year. I got to try new things, right? But at least I want you to know that I asked people what they wanted changed with the show. And a lot of them said they wanted more episodes with Elise.
Oh, thank you out there. And talking about the things we didn't mention, I'll do this because Annie actually didn't think of it doing it yet. Don't forget, we're offering a tour at the end of May for a week in Paris with add-ons that are wonderful. And we're waiting for more people to come and join us.
That one is going to be fabulous, but we need more people.
We need more people. And this is the opportunity. Offer your beloved ones a week in Paris with us. This will be the gift of a lifetime.
I know, because, I don't know about you, Elise, but I don't need that much more stuff. A few things, but not that many.
Not that much.
But a great vacation.
A great vacation.
Unbelievable.
You will never, ever, ever forget it, and you will never regret it.
So to check out the details, go to addictedtofrance.com.
Yes, please join us.
All right. Thank you very much, Elise.
You are quite welcome, Annie.
Joyeux Noël.
Joyeux Noël.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Thank you for signing up to support the show on Patreon this week, Jeffrey Zach. Last Saturday, I released a new installment of Lunch Break French, the exclusive reward for Patreon supporters. The theme this month was the 13 desserts of Provence, les 13 desserts de Provence. For Lunch Break French, I write a short article in both French and English, and I read it to you in both languages at a normal rate of speech, and you can read along if you wish. It's a great listening comprehension practice and a great test to see if you are ready for the French we speak in France, rather than use the stuff you hear from French teachers or apps or whatever, which is usually way too simplified. When you sign up to support the show on Patreon, you get access to all the previous installments of Lunch Break French, and I'll be announcing new rewards for patrons who support at a level of $5 per month in the next episode. Thank you so much, patrons. Your support is very much appreciated. To support the show on Patreon, visit patreon.com, Patreon, and search for Join Us in France, or click on the link in the show notes or on joinusinfrance.com/178, which is where you'll find the show notes for this episode. This is the French tip of the week. For the French tip of the week, of course, I had to tell you how to say this. Joyeux Noël et bonne année. Joyeux Noël et bonne année. Which means Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Repeat after me. Joyeux Noël et bonne année. And the French history brief this week is about the first Christmas tree ever recorded anywhere in the world. The first Christmas tree ever documented anywhere in the world is credited to a place in Alsace called Célestat, and that was in 1521. Célestat is just a little bit south of Strasbourg and only 17 kilometers away from the German border. It's not a village anymore. There are 20,000 inhabitants in Célestat today. It has a cute medieval center with lovely half-timbered houses. And like most places in Alsace, Célestat has a Christmas market where, of course, they celebrate the first Christmas tree. They also have blown glass festivities, and more about that in a moment, and video projections against the facade of the church, which seems to be a big thing anymore in France. They do that a lot of places. They also have an open-air ice rink, and it looks like Christmas is serious fun there. The first Christmas tree inspired Protestants in Alsace and in Germany to do the same. They wanted to get rid of the crèche or nativity because that was from the Catholic tradition. Why did they pick a tree? Well, because of the tree of life from the Bible. They picked an evergreen tree because of the idea of everlasting life. These Christmas trees became common over time in Alsace, in Germany, in Poland. Wherever there were Protestants, the Christmas tree tradition took root. It was slower to make its way into Catholic country, but by now, I mean, it's even in Buddhist countries for all I know. There's Christmas trees everywhere. At first, the trees were decorated with cloth, ribbons, candy, painted apples, and candles, of course, which I don't know how they put candles in a tree and light them without burning the house down, but whatever. But in 1858, the winter was so harsh that they didn't have enough apples to decorate the trees. So that's 300 years and some after the original tree. That's when they started to use blown glass apples, in quote, that they used on the tree as a substitute. That caught on right away. And of course, we still put nice, beautiful, round, shiny ornaments on our trees today, don't we? In France, Louis XV's wife, that was Marie Antoinette, she came from the Polish tradition. She introduced the idea of the Christmas tree, but it didn't catch on too well. It was the wrong time, I think. Then in 1837, Hélène de Mecklembourg, okay, I'm not even sure I'm saying this name right. I'll put it in the show notes so you can see it. She was the Duchess of Orleans and a stepdaughter of King Louis-Philippe. She had them plant a spruce tree in the Luxembourg garden just so she could decorate it. And that's what launched the Christmas tree all over France. So we see that there was a lot of time that, went by. The first Christmas tree is 1521, and this Hélène de Mecklembourg was 1837. So that's 300 years. That took a long time. But by now, like I said, everybody has a Christmas tree, right? Even people who were not Christian at all, even people who were not believers at all. It's just pretty. That's why we do it. For my personal update, well, I went to the Toulouse Christmas market after recording this episode with Elise. Actually, I went on the same day. I got there a little late. It was 8:45 p.m. And you know what? Everything was closed. Security was locking down. The vendors were packing up. They told me, "You're too late, lady." So for as much as I love my city of Toulouse, it's not a Christmas town. So pay close attention to what we said in this episode and in other episodes. If you want to come to France for Christmas, pick the places that get into it and not Toulouse. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to be straightforward about these things. I can't lie to you. I'm going to be taking the time I won't spend on producing new episodes in the next couple of weeks to work on the new Join Us in France website. And if I manage to make enough progress to launch it before I talk to you again, I'll announce it via the newsletter, which is why you should subscribe to the newsletter, right? When I launch the new website, at the beginning, it will not have all the episodes available right away. Let me explain. There are two parts to putting a podcast together, and they are completely separate. On the one hand, you have the audio files, and on the other hand, you have the website. One works without the other. They are hosted on different servers. They are completely separate. If the website went away completely, the audio would still work, and vice versa, as a matter of fact. So that's why I mention occasionally, and I need to mention it more often, that you need to subscribe to the podcast on your phone, or now you can do it on Spotify as well. If you haven't done that, do it now, because it gives you full access to all the audio files, past or future. And there will not be any interruption to the audio feed while I work on the website. But if you are someone who listens to the podcast by going to the website and by clicking on the player on the website, that will get disrupted somewhat. For example, you might be looking for an episode about Bordeaux. I'm just taking this as an example. You go to the website, you go searching for Bordeaux, and you don't find anything. That doesn't mean that we didn't do an episode about Bordeaux, because we did, but it just means that I haven't had the time to put it on the new website yet, okay? Because some of these older episodes, I have to redo pretty much everything. And that takes several hours, and I have 178 episodes to do, so it'll take some time for me to get up to speed. I have years to go back up on. So for a while, the new website is going to have, we'll have maybe 50, 60 episodes but not all of them, okay? So moral of the story, subscribe to the audio because that will not get disrupted at all, whereas the website will. And once you are subscribed to the audio, you can search through the back catalog. Apple Podcast, they have this rule that only folks who are subscribed can see the back catalog. I have no control over that. That's just what they do, right? So if you use the Apple default app on your iPhone or iPad, and the majority of you are, I can see that from the statistics, you can only see the last episode until you click on the subscribe button. When you subscribe, it'll unlock all of the episodes, and then you can choose what you want to listen to or not. It's up to you. But they don't even show them to you until you are subscribed. And of course, while there are disruptions to the website, the only way I have to communicate with you is via the email. So subscribe to that as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to the show and for your interest in France. We are a tiny country. We're quite insignificant in world affairs. That anybody cares about what happens in France today or in the past is wonderful, I think. And many of you have talked about the show to folks you know who are also interested in France, and that's a huge help. I think this will change as podcasts become more mainstream, but most people don't think about podcasts as a resource. They don't think, I'll take a vacation to France next year. I wonder if I can prepare my trip by listening to a podcast while I drive to work, and then they would go search for one. Yeah, no, most people don't think like that unless somebody mentions it to them. So if you hear that someone is going to France, mention to them about the podcast and that they can learn all sorts of things that will make their trip better, and they don't even have to sit and read or sit and watch a video. They can do it while doing something else, which is really perfect for our busy lives. So my thanks to all of you who mentioned the show. You're helping your friends and you're helping me. Because when I see the number of listeners going up, it's good for my morale. Because yes, putting together a podcast takes a lot of my time. I love doing it, and I'm really privileged to be able to take the time to do it, but it's a lot of work. And thank you to all of you who are so engaged. Whenever I send out a weekly newsletter, people write back, they say thank you or add a little something, and I love to hear from them. I love that you offer to do episodes with me. And Phil, by the way, I owe you an email. We'll talk after Christmas. Your contributions make this a rich and entertaining community, so thank you so much. And I love to see what you post on the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook. I don't talk about it often enough, but when you share your vacation pictures there, it makes me really happy. Anne is in France right now and posting lots of wonderful things about what she's doing. And how about the elopement photos by Shauna? Weren't these wonderful? Thank you also for all your financial contributions. I'm a long way from a salary, but as I get better, the contributions will get better too, because that's how it works. And I'm still working on the book. A book is new to me, so I'm slow, and I'm always slow at doing anything new, but I'm making progress, I'm working on it, and I'll get there. So thank you for your support on that as well. The best way to connect with me is Annie@joinusinfrance.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 1-801-806-1015. All right, let's wrap this up. Go enjoy your friends and family. Merry Christmas, Joyeux Noël, or any other celebrations you do this time of year. I think most people celebrate something or other in December. So whatever it is, enjoy it. And I'll talk to you again on January 10th, 2018. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2017 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.